Will the meeting please come to order? Will all members of the council as well as the public please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. The invocation this evening will be offered by Councilman Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. If you'll please pray with me. We meet to serve. We meet to serve our community, to use our resources wisely and well, to represent all members of our community fairly, to make decisions that promote the common good. We recognize our responsibility to the past and the future, and the rights and needs of both individuals and community. As trusted servants, we seek blessings on our deliberations and on our efforts here today. May we act wisely and well. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Without objection, we'll suspend the calling of the roll and ask the clerk to record the names of those members present throughout the meeting. Is there a motion for adoption of the minutes of December 5th, 2017? Without objection, those minutes will stand approved as written. Madam Clerk, is there any communication from the mayor?
No, Mr. Vice Mayor. There's no communication from the mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We now move to elections and confirmations. Is there a report from the Rules, Confirmations, and Public Elections Committee? Council Lady Karen Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We do have a report from the Rules Committee. The Rules Committee reviewed the reappointment of Mr. Roy Dale for a term expiring October 31st, 2021, and the reappointment of Ms. Anna Maddox for a term expiring October 31st, 2021 to the Stormwater Management Committee. And the Rules Committee voted 6-4, 0 against, and I move for approval on both.
There is a motion for confirmation of Mr. Roy Dale and Ms. Anna Maddox to the Stormwater Management Committee. It's been properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us, is there anything else from the Rules and Confirmations Committee, Councilor Johnson?
Yes, as Vice Chair of the Rules, Confirmation, and Public Elections Committee, I'm called upon to notify this body of a clerical error that appeared in the minutes for the Metropolitan Council meeting that occurred December 3rd, 2013. At that meeting, the council approved the appointment of Mr. Melvin Black to the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency for a 5-year term that was intended to expire on November 5th, 2018. However, as the result of a typographical error, Mr. Black's term was inadvertently described in the minutes as expiring on November 5th, 2017. This was an inadvertent mistake, and I hereby move to amend the minutes for the meeting of December 3rd, 2013 to reflect that the term for the appointment of Mr. Melvin Black be recorded as expiring on November 5th, 2018.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to the motion to reconsider. RS 2017-966, Vircher, Wiener, and others. Authorizes the employment of Leif Cabraser, Hyman, and Bernstein, LLP, as special counsel to investigate claims against manufacturers and distributors of prescription opioids that have wrongfully caused drug addiction in Davidson County. Mr. Jameson, if you could let the council know the procedural posture of this motion.
Pursuant to Rule 35, a motion to consider is automatically pushed to the next meeting. This is that next meeting. The motion is not debatable. It is an up or down vote. If the motion is disapproved, the previous approval of the resolution stands and we proceed to the next item on the agenda. If the motion is approved, you are reverted back to the condition of the resolution at the time of the last meeting prior to its approval, and debate may ensue.
Are there any questions about the process? No. Council Lady Allen?
Thank you. Just to be very clear, the condition that we're going back to was a motion to approve. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Anything for the Council Lady Gilmore?
So can we make any comments on the bill?
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you for that clarity.
You're welcome. Council Lady Henderson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. While I appreciate Mr. Jameson's explanation, could you then further clarify if you want this to happen, you are voting this and so forth? Because I wonder if
In
colleagues have-
layman's terms?
Indeed. Thank you, sir.
I am indeed a layman. So 30 of you voted in favor of the resolution at the last council meeting. If you want that vote to stand, you're going to vote no right now. If you want to go back and have further debate and reconsider the previous approval, you're going to vote yes. Was that adequate?
Indeed, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, if you'd open the machine. Council Lady Mina Johnson, Council Lady Hart. Madam Clerk, if you'd close the machine and tally the vote.
1 in favor, 31 against, 1 abstention.
Motion fails. I did omit the recognition of Mr. Dale and Ms. Maddox, and I do apologize for that, but I was trying to move us along as I do sometimes. So we would all like to recognize those citizens who were confirmed tonight. If you'll please stand as I call your name and remain standing until all have been called. Mr. Roy Dale and Ms. Anna Maddox to the Stormwater Committee. We certainly do appreciate your willingness to serve and volunteer your time on behalf of the city of Nashville. So thank you very much. I'm going to slow down. And Council Lady Van Rees, do you have a presentation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am very pleased to be here this evening to present a resolution recognizing the Nashville Songwriters Association as it celebrates its 50th anniversary. Many of you may or may not realize that I worked with songwriters from 1985 to 1998 as an independent publisher and music promoter, but also served at BMI, where our fellow council member Jeff Syracuse and I first met in 1998 through 2007. So a lot of my career has been in support of songwriters. On behalf of Councilman Syracuse, who co-sponsored this resolution with me, I'm sorry that he's not here tonight. He's actually in China with BMI representing songwriters there as well. So that speaks to our why we brought this forward. And I would like just to, if I can get a show of hands of council members who have ever written a song. All right. There you go. A resolution recognizing the Nashville Songwriters Association International as it celebrates its 50th anniversary. Whereas the Nashville Songwriters Association International, NSAI, was established in 1967 and is the world's largest not-for-profit songwriters trade association with more than 5,000 active and professional members. And whereas the NSAI is dedicated to protecting the rights of and serving aspiring and professional songwriters in all genres of music, and whereas NSAI first advocacy efforts achieved success in 1970 when the major Nashville record label companies started including songwriters' names on album packaging, ultimately helping legitimize songwriters' work in the industry. And whereas in 1988, former NSAI Executive Director Pat Rogers elevated the association's scope by creating the NSAI Regional Workshops Program, the NSAI Professional Division, and taking advocacy work to a new level in Washington, D.C. And whereas the NSAI now spearheads numerous copyright protection and songwriter advocacy efforts in Washington, D.C. and beyond, like in China. Whereas in 1992, NSAI created the week-long Songwriters Festival, 10 Pans South. Whereas it has become the largest songwriter-only festival in the United States, featuring approximately 100 shows and 400 songwriters. And whereas the slogan of the NSAI, "It all begins with a song," conveys that songwriters are the foundation of Nashville's music industry. And whereas the Nashville Songwriters Association International acts as a unifying force within the music community and is committed to protecting the rights of songwriters and future songwriters and songwriting. And whereas it is fitting and proper that the Metropolitan Council recognizes the Nashville Songwriters Association International on their 50th anniversary and wishes them continued success in their endeavors. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Metro Council of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County that the Metropolitan Council hereby goes on record as recognizing the Nashville Songwriters Association International as it celebrates its 50th anniversary. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Turnbow. I'm the Senior Director of Operations for the Nashville Songwriters Association. I'd first like to thank Councilwoman Van Rees and the entire council for this recognition. We appreciate it so much. Songwriters are such an integral part of our community, and we're so proud to have been here for 50 years serving such an amazing constituency. We are over there on Music Row every day working to improve the livelihoods of professional songwriters and to teach people who are interested in the craft and business of songwriting how this whole thing works. We are continually doing this on a day-to-day basis. In fact, you'll be hearing that we have a new bill in Congress as of this week called the Modernization Act that's going to help songwriters get paid more appropriately from digital platforms. So this is an ongoing effort. We're proud of what we do. We're so proud to be part of this community, and we thank you all so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we get a couple? Okay. We'll take a picture.
Okay, yeah.
Are we going to take a picture?
Very much.
Usually when you have a surprise party, the surprise is the party. Tonight, we have Mr. Doug Sloane, who is here tonight, and the surprise is that he was supposed to come at the next meeting. This is, I guess, of all the Metro employees that have an influence over the Metro Council on a daily basis, there's no one in the last few years who's had more of an influence over our business than the director of the planning department. So although we will be recognizing him at a future date after we've adopted the resolution, I did want to acknowledge the presence of Doug Sloane, the outgoing planning director, and thank him personally on my behalf, and I think on behalf of this room, for his service to the city of Nashville, and wish him and his family the best as he moves on to another role in our city. Thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing you again soon. Is that appropriate? That brings us to the consent agenda. The following items are currently on the consent agenda. RS 2017-987 through 992 and 996 through 998. Any other items that should be taken off the consent agenda? Seeing none, if you'll bear with me for a minute. RS 2017-987, Leonardo Vercher and others, authorizes the Director of Public Property to purchase various flood-prone properties for Metro Water Services. RS 2017-988, Council Lady Vercher, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the property damage claim of Efren Montes de Oca against Metro in the amount of $8,700. RS 2017-989, Council Lady Vercher, authorizes the Department of Law to compromise and settle the personal injury claim of Carol Slate against Metro in the amount of $125,000. RS 2017-990, Withers, Syracuse, and others, approves a Transportation Alternatives Program grant from the Tennessee Department of Transportation to the Metro Parks and Recreation Department to provide funding for the construction of a multimodal path and elevated boardwalk from the Cumberland River pedestrian bridge to the Opry Mills Complex. RS 2017-991, Vercher and Gilmore, approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Health to the Metro Board of Health to provide HIV, STD, viral hepatitis prevention services for the management, surveillance, and reporting of communicable diseases. RS 2017-996, O'Connell, Bedney, and Elrod, authorizes industrial strength marketing to construct and install an aerial encroachment at 1401 Fifth Avenue North. And in RS 2017-997, Council Lady Mina Johnson, Councilman Bedney, recognizes Doug Sloane upon his departure from the Metropolitan Planning Department. And RS 2017-998, Councilman O'Connell, recognizes the Ryman Auditorium, the Mother Church of Country Music, and its 125 years in Nashville as Music City's most famous and respected music venue. Committee reports. Council Lady Vercher, Budget and Finance. I'm sorry, Council Lady, there you go.
Not a problem, Vice Mayor. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Resolutions 2017-987 through 992 was recommended for approval by Budget and Finance, 14-4, 0 against.
Thank you. Council Lady Gilmore, Health, Hospitals, and Social Services. Councilman Roten, Parks, Library, and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Parks, Library, and Recreation approved 2017-990, 6 in favor, 0 against.
Council Lady Mina Johnson, Planning, Zoning, Historical.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical, I recommend for approval resolution RS 2017-987 and RS 2017-996, 11-4, 0 against.
Thank you, Council Lady. Councilman Elrod, Public Works.
Public Works recommended approval resolution 987 and 996, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Pulley, did you attend the Health Hospitals Committee? Do you have the report? Will you look on Councilman Gilmore's desk? All right. Councilman, would you like to provide the report? Councilman Hastings, can you give the report on RS 2017 991 and 992?
All right, for 991, 2017 991, there was present. Well, hold on one second. There was four that were for and none against for 991, and also on 2017 992, there were 5 for and 0 against.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilor Karen Johnson, Rules Confirmation.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The Rules Committee approved RS 2017-997-60 and RS 2017-998-60.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, I move for approval of all resolutions on the consent agenda.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. The consent agenda is approved. RS 2017-779. Councilman Elrod amends ordinance number BL 2016-235 to increase permit fees for closures in the right-of-way permit high impact area. Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, Budget and Finance recommended approval to defer to the second meeting in March, 14 for, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works made the same recommendation, 8 in favor, 0 against, but since this is the third deferral, I'll move to indefinitely defer these. Public Works is in the middle, or excuse me, the Finance Department is in the middle of a studying of Public Works fees, and this resolution and the next two deal with that, so I'm going to defer these until that comes in. Hopefully at the end of January, middle of February is what the consultant, when I was on the phone with him last week, told me, so I moved to indefinite defer this resolution.
Motion to defer indefinitely is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. RS 2017-780, Councilman Elrod amends ordinance number BL 2016-235 to create a fee for a right-of-way site management plan permit. Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, Budget and Finance recommended to defer to the second meeting in March, 14 for, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommended deferral to the second meeting in March, 8 in favor, 0 against, but I move to move this to defer it indefinitely.
Thank you, Councilman. There's a motion to defer indefinitely. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. RS 2017-781, Councilman Elrod requests that all fee revenue from right-of-way temporary closure permits be used for staffing expenses and other direct costs of administering such permits. Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. At the request of the sponsor, Budget and Finance recommended deferral to the second meeting in March, 14 for, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommended deferral to the second meeting in March, 8 in favor, 0 against, but I move to defer indefinitely.
Motion to defer indefinitely. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. RS 2017-986 approves an economic community development incentive grant to be made to the Industrial Development Board for the benefit of Phillips Holding USA Incorporated. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 13 for, 1 against.
Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Madam Clerk, if you'll open the machine. If you, Councilman Hager. Nope. Machine vote, sir. Machine vote, sir. That's all right. Madam Clerk, if you'll close the machine, tally vote.
28 in favor, 1 against, 3 abstentions.
Motion carries. RS 2017-993. Councilor Vercher, Councilman Withers approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish programs to prepare adult service recipients for employment. Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 14-4, 0 against.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee met today. However, we lacked a quorum in order to take action on this measure.
Thank you, Councilman. I'll reach out to you this week about that. Councilor Vercher.
I move for approval.
The motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. RS 2017-994, Councilor Lady Vercher, Councilman Withers approves a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to establish career services for eligible adults, youth, and dislocated workers with barriers to employment, education, training, and support services to succeed in the labor market. Councilor Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Likewise, the Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee met this afternoon but lacked a quorum in order to take action on this measure.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilor Vercher.
Budget and Finance recommended approval, 14-4, 0 against, and I move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. RS 2017-995, Councilor Lady Vercher, Councilman Withers approves an amendment to a grant from the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to the Nashville Career Advancement Center to administer programs and services. Councilor Lady Vercher.
Committee reports.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Once again, the Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee met this afternoon but lacked a quorum in order to take action on this measure.
Thank you, Councilor Lady.
Budget and Finance recommended approval, 14-4, 0 against, and I move for approval.
This motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That's the end of our regular resolution docket. Councilman Davis, Scott Davis, are you seeking recognition with a late file resolution or no? Thank you, sir. That brings us to bill on introduction and first reading. Without objection, we'll take them all together. Is there a motion to approve bills on introduction and first reading? There's a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to bills on second reading. BL 2017-865, Elrod Freeman and others. Amends the Metro Code regarding the Department of Public Works reporting requirements. Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, please. Am I the only one?
Yes, sir.
Public Works recommended deferral to the second meeting in March, 8 in favor, 0 against, and I so move.
Motion to defer to the second meeting in March is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-941, Council Lady Allen amends the Metro Code to establish a commercial permit parking program. Council Lady Allen.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilman Hager.
Traffic and parking, sponsor moved to defer at 2 meetings, 4-4-0 against.
Council Lady Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'm still working with Public Works, Traffic Department, and also want to get input from the Traffic and Parking Commission, so I would move to defer 2 meetings to the second meeting in January.
There's a motion to defer to the second meeting in January. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-953, Councilman Withers. Amends the Metro Code to restrict door-to-door commercial solicitation to daylight hours and to revise eligibility provisions for issuance of a permit. Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Could I get committee reports, please?
Councilor Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Public Safety, Beer, and Regulated Beverages voted 4 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I actually need to move an amendment to the bill.
There's a motion to amend. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. You're on your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Just as a brief comment, this bill arises from constituent feedback with regard to what the hours would be for commercial door-to-door solicitation. We determined that there were no set hour limitations for that, and so I brought forward a bill to set hours for that. I have received feedback from some industry folks that engage in that business, and we have agreed to a compromise, which is that the hours during which door-to-door commercial solicitation can occur would be sunrise in the morning, and in evenings would be 7 p.m. or sunset, whichever occurs later. As we know, during the season that we're in right now, sunset happens before 5. Industry folks wanted to have at least a couple hours potentially in the evenings to continue that business. And so we arrived at that compromise, which is memorialized in the amendment that was moved today. There was also some discussion with regard to updating the language in the eligibility requirements. I have engaged in some communication with the public defender and some other interested parties. What we've decided to do is to just take that matter up separately, as it seems to require a little bit more discussion. So what the bill does today is it simply reverts to the current language that's in the code with regard to the eligibility requirements, but does set the hours as being sunrise in the morning to 7 p.m. or sunset, whichever is later for the hours when that's eligible. And just want to give a plug while I'm up here that folks who are interested in entering their house into the do not knock list should contact the Metro Clerk. And with that, I renew my motion to approve.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2017-983, Councilman Anthony Davis and others, amends the Metro Code to require certain information for the assessment of economic and community development incentives. Councilman Anthony Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval as amended, 12 for, 2 against.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. As previously noted, the Personnel, Public Information, Human Relations, and Housing Committee did meet this afternoon. However, we lacked a quorum to make a recommendation.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If I could go ahead and move my amendment and just bolt that on to the bill.
There's a motion to amend. It's properly seconded. Councilor Murphy, are you seeking recognition at this point later? Okay. There's a motion to amend. It's properly seconded. Councilman Glover on the amendment.
Just a very quick question, and just for some clarity. Mr. Jamison, you had said yesterday this could even be amended up to third reading. I just want to clarify that.
Correct. It's
okay.
under Rule 15.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. There's a motion to amend. It's properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're on your bill as amended.
If I can move approval as amended with an explanation.
It's properly seconded. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. First, I want to say thank you again to all my co-sponsors, many of you, and of course to the Mayor's Office of Economic Development. Matt Nashford worked with me a lot on this bill and all the input received. Also to all the Nashvillians that emailed. We were getting a lot of emails and that showed up tonight, clearly in support of the ordinance. Some of the proponents of this bill aptly, I think, titled it the Do Better Bill. I believe because simply by asking questions on the front end of these projects, we can get companies thinking about community benefits and how we can do better for Nashville and our workforce. I think this is an important first step in making sure economic development incentives are transparent and their benefits are clear to the public. By getting details on economic impact and full disclosure of a company's safety and wage record before my fellow members here vote to approve pilots or ECDs and grant programs, the corporations seeking these incentives can be held publicly accountable to make good on these promises. Last night in committee, we had some really good discussion. I think we went around a little bit on some of the wonkier aspects of the bill. And I think several great questions were asked and hopefully answered to your satisfaction. Some of those were, for example, are we stripping any power from the IDB for pilots? I think this was answered and cleared up in my amendment, and no, we are not adding this power to the council. Would this retroactively cover all the older incentive deals and that sort of thing? I think the answer is no. That is not my intent as the sponsor. I think Mr. Jamison said he was comfortable. It doesn't read that way, nor will it be enforced as such. Is this cumbersome for the ECD office? Will we lose any deals? I think no. These companies want to come to Nashville. Our ECD office does a wonderful job working these deals, courting these companies. There certainly is a point where we don't want to ask for too much of these incentive-seeking companies. But in no universe, I don't think we're there yet. And I think this will actually streamline all these questions that we've had on a lot of these deals on the front end that tend to get asked at a later date. And once again, the city's providing the company with a nice incentive package to relocate or stay in Nashville. Ultimately, last night we received a 12-2 nod of support, as you heard from budget, because I think the vast majority of our budget committee feels this ordinance has been vetted. I think we felt satisfied with the collaboration with the mayor's office and ECD, and that this comprehensive amendment here, after deferring the previous meeting, I think satisfies the questions, and we've made some good compromises here. So what does this bill do? The Do Better bill requires companies seeking ECD grants and pilot incentives to answer just some basic questions to Metro Council as we consider their request. How many new jobs will the deal have? What are the benefits and pay of these jobs? Workforce development plan, OSHA violations or wage disputes. Lots of good information, I think, to have up front. Council will get these answers before they are asked to approve the deals. They will know how it will impact their constituents from day one. Further, council will get regular progress reports to see how these companies are holding up their end of the deal. This is the right time to do this. I think the October jobs report here had Nashville at 2.3% unemployment. Nashville is red hot, as we've said many times. Like many of you, I support these incentive deals. I've never voted against one. I probably never will. But I truly think asking these questions up front will help us raise the standards for workforce over time. And I think this is a start to leading the way on pushing higher standards simply by asking for information. Please vote with me tonight to move this forward. Do not defer. Please move forward tonight. Thank you.
Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Vice Mayor, and I want to thank our fellow council member from the 7th District for bringing this legislation. On my way here, as I told some of y'all tonight, I had to take an Uber because I let my brother borrow my car. And on the way here, I had a great discussion with my Uber driver about why is he Ubering. I often ask my drivers that. And he said it's because he is unemployed right now. And he's Ubering instead of taking an unemployment check because of delays and things like that. But the important part is that he is a local member of the plumbers and pipe fitters. Who he told me a story as we drove by the Lifeway building, an example of an ECD project that we gave money to, that his plumbers and pipe fitters union was brought in after one of the employees fell and passed away. And so I think that this bill is important tonight so we can see where our taxpayer dollars are going, see what type of information we have about that money. How much are we paying these workers? What are the training? What kind of problems are happening? I'd like to ask Mr. Jameson if any of the things that we are seeking to put on this kind of report card, if you would, or scorecard, is any of this a trade secret?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, it seems to be information that would not typically constitute trade secret information. It's the number of jobs, the number anticipated from Davidson County, the wages and benefits. Perhaps there could be scenarios where that information is considered sensitive in a competitive market, but nothing that I understand to be a trade secret.
So at the end of the day, we're asking for information about where our taxpayer dollars, the money that we each pay into Metro government and that our constituents pay, and to follow that dollar and see where it's going. And I think that is a bare minimum of what we should be requesting of these incentive packages to see where exactly that money's going, how it's being spent, and the impact of it. So we know if the programs are working, then we can keep doing them. If it's not working, then maybe we don't want to be in business with that person. But I think this is an important bill. I think this is going to move Nashville forward and make sure that we are in protecting workers and having good jobs in Davidson County. And so I urge you all to continue to support this bill. We need to move forward. The council member has done an excellent job of bringing people to the table. We're not going to agree on everything. Sometimes we've got to update things later on. This is a great first step, and I would appreciate everyone's support tonight for it. Thank you.
Councilor Weiner. I know you guys may not come here every 2 weeks, but we don't applaud here. I'll move this one to the heel if we keep applauding. Councilor Weiner.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. While I agree with the interest in reporting, in accountability, in transparency that's represented in this bill, sadly, there are pieces of it that worry me And for that reason, I have to be a no. And if you'll bear with me for just a moment, you know, Nashville's the it city, and it needs to be the it city for everybody. And while according to the American Community Survey, we have a very low unemployment rate, we do have subsets within our community who absolutely rise higher in the unemployment category, and we need to think about the potential for job loss that this bill may very well present. We already have the opportunity through legally binding contracts that if a company does not fulfill their job, they don't get the money. So they lose that incentive. So part of me feels like this is duplication. Part of me feels like pieces of this are not necessary. As a small business owner, I would not sign a contract that can be upended down the road. It doesn't make good business sense. And as a small business owner, as a business owner myself, I have grave concerns about that piece of it. If it weren't in there, I'd be a co-sponsor of the bill. But having said that, sadly, I'll have to be a no tonight.
Councilman Davis, Scott Davis.
The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. We're sitting here today, it's almost Christmas time, we're ready to go home. We have people in the business community that may not be such a big fan of this, some members, but we have our brothers and sisters and friends of ours who say, hey, we need to do better. We need to look at these economic incentives and take a closer look. And I hear people talk about the lowest unemployment in history. Well, it depends on where you live. I am in support of the sponsor and this piece of legislation. I said it the night of the minority caucus, and I meant it. I will be voting with the sponsor tonight. However, mainly right now is there needs to be questions asked. And as part of this body, and as a citizen of the United States, I reserve the right to ask my legal representation questions, and I have the right to ask for people at home and other body members of this great group who need to have questions asked during the committee but are unable to be there either because of another committee or other obligations. Just because someone has a question, does that mean they're against you? A lot of us are married. We love our spouse. I guarantee your spouse does not agree with 150% of everything you do. Maybe 80%, maybe 70%. But because of that one reason, you should not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm here to let people know the caucus supports a lot of these initiatives, and you're starting to get a little bit better by doing stuff on the front end. Coming to us, trying to be earlier, but not early enough, doing stuff before you get the legislation, doing business with those in our community, and helping out our nonprofits like the Urban League before you come here to ask. But we're also looking out here. Sometimes in the labor field, I don't see enough people that look like me. Sometimes in the business field, I definitely don't see enough people that look like me. The Do Better bill needs to be do better for all of Nashville, not just for labor, not just for business, but all of us, including myself too. And so right now, we have several difficulties in front of us. We have a hospital we need to keep in business. We have several cranes that are still up, and we have other things. But we got to deal with Airbnbs. We got to deal with this codes department. We got to find a new planning director. We have several things that are very important we have to do better at. And right now, I am challenging all of you. Please vote for this legislation. It may not be perfect, but it's the best that we have right now. And we need to do better in all the fields. And I'm taking score here because early next year, there'll be a vote for better procurement practices for those in our community. And this is a great idea. And once that better procurement comes forward, and I want to work with all of you, the mayor's office, the NAACP, the Urban League, labor on that. So this is important to me. And so we have the support. But that procurement coming forward, is also important. I said the same thing when we were looking at Mendez and Sledge and Mr. Bedney's legislation on helping our brothers and sisters who may have been brought here when they were kids, but not citizenship. When I said that last night, I want to protect those people too, but I also want to protect those other citizens that are here that may get abused by the cops. This is similar. I'm taking score. I'm supporting you tonight. All right, but I want your support and your sponsors when we talk about procurement and other potential things, because the caucus, we're going to help you and we're going to vote with you. You know, majority of us, I believe, maybe all of us. But right now, we're going to need your help next year when it's time for, you know, us to address those procurement issues that we desperately need to do here. So I trust you, brother. I'm stepping out on faith with you. Thank you.
Councilor Gilmore.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Councilmember Davis. We've been working on this for a while. Also wanted to thank the mayor's office in Ashford, and also wanted to thank the citizens. I think a lot of times we live in turbulent times, and people always say, how can I get involved? You know, or the government's no good. But this is a wonderful case where citizens, along with unions and everyday people that had concerns about how we can improve our government, came to a council member, and they worked with the council member. And for a lot of people that may be watching, they don't realize it's very difficult. You realize in the process that government's messy, it's not always quick, and that this has been going on for months and months, but yet those different persons, the Odessa Kellys and the Ethan Links of the world, they stuck with it and they worked with it. So I'm really excited about it. I'm excited about all the people that came back, came out tonight, all the different people that came to the table. And I just really want to thank our citizenry of Nashville and just really tell you we appreciate you. You're a good example of how when the citizens of Nashville work with the legislators of Nashville, work with the mayor's office, and work with the different departments, we can get things done. Like you see an issue, we put our heads together, put our pencil to the legislation, and we got some things done. And it takes a minute sometimes, but we got it done. So I just wanted to thank Councilmember Davis, once again, for all the meetings that you had that people didn't see, all the citizens that came over and over and went back to their different constituencies and talked to them about how we could make Nashville better and do better. And also the mayor's office too, you know, because I think it's a different department. All of us have a different place, and we have to understand what our role is, and it always doesn't work the way that we see it. But when we can come together and make Nashville better, we really do better, and I think this will be a reflection of that bill. So I encourage all of my colleagues to support this bill. And once again, I just really want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Davis, from the bottom of my heart, and all those constituents out there that sent those emails. I mean, that's politics 101. Send the emails. You came out here tonight. You wore the shirts. You went to the meetings. You made it happen. So you give yourselves a hand on the back, too. So thank you so much.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I also appreciate my colleague bringing this bill forward and being so diligent and working through quite a few amendments already and listening to a lot of stakeholders. One of the things that I'm really, really interested in with this bill is the focus on training and apprenticeship programs. In District 6, we have the Envision Casey Master Plan, where we're rolling out a strategy for reducing concentration of poverty through introducing mixed income housing. And that's one component of it, is to have the Casey residents be in an environment where there are folks from different backgrounds and different income levels, and we're introducing new amenities, a new school, a new library. We have a lot of great things that we're bringing to Casey residents. But the other thing that we need to bring to Casey residents is genuine opportunity. The Opportunity Now program for our young people was great. It's unfortunate that we weren't able to have as much Casey resident young person participation in that program this year as I might have liked, and we'll keep working at it in the future. But whether you're a young person graduating from one of the academies at the MNPS schools, or whether you're an adult who is just looking for better career opportunities, that apprenticeship and training focus is really essential. That's how people are going to get out of poverty, is by gaining meaningful skills through a meaningful apprenticeship or training program that can lead them to gainful employment for the rest of their lives. So I think that's just a really, really important thing for the council to focus on as we look at these programs. It's not just we're going to give you $500 for a job, which is great, but how do we make sure that our residents are getting better jobs, better skills that can make them lifelong earners so that they can lift themselves out of poverty, take care of their families, and plan for their retirements. So I think that's just a huge thing that we should consider. And we want to hear from companies who are coming to Metro for incentives, and I appreciate the sponsor bringing this forward.
Councilman Hastings.
I would like to just call for the vote, the question, back to the question.
The question's been called. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Madam Clerk, if you'll open the machine. Madam Clerk, if you'll close the machine, tally vote.
30 in favor, 5 against, no abstentions.
Motion carries. BL 2017-984 amends the Metro Code to increase towing and recovery rates. That's Councilman Hager, Elrod, and Verger. Councilman Hager.
Vice Mayor, I need to pass this over to my co-sponsor, Councilman Elrod. I have a conflict of interest. No miss abstaining.
Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval as amended, 14 for, 0 against.
Councilman Hager, are you going to give the committee report? We do have a committee report on that.
I can give the committee report. It was 3 for, 1 abstaining, which was myself.
Thank you. Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommended approval as amended, 8 in favor, 0 against. Now, so move with a brief comment.
Floor is yours.
This bill simply raises some of the towing fees that the towing companies are allowed to charge. This has only been increased twice since 1999. There have been rising costs in how to do business with the different towing companies, whether it's picking up your two-door sedan or the large tractor trailers. And in committee, we had a lengthy discussion about this, and one of the high costs is due to the amount of traffic that we have in Nashville, that there are, I believe, 15 zones in Nashville that the record companies that work in those zones commit that they'll be there within 30 minutes of a call. Well, because of traffic, the increasing traffic that we have in our city, they're having trouble meeting that, but also just the increased number of accidents because we have more traffic. So with that explanation, I move approval.
Is there an amendment, Councilman?
I'm sorry, I move the amendment, Mr. Vice Mayor.
There's an amendment. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You're now on the bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The amendment just corrected some typographical and drafting errors, so I renew my motion for approval as amended.
The motion to approve is amended. It's properly seconded. Councilor Vercher, are you seeking recognition?
No, Vice Mayor.
There was somebody. All right. All in favor? Opposed? And mark Councilman Hager as abstaining, please. Otherwise, all in favor. BL 2017-1006, Council Lady Dowell, Vercher, and others. Approves the Director of Public Property Administration to accept a donation of property located at the intersection of Blue Hole Road and Bell Road for use as part of the parks system. Council Lady Dowell.
Thank you. Committee reports.
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 14 for, 0 against.
Councilman Roten.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Park Library approved, 6 in favor, 0 against.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against.
Councilor Dowell.
Thank you, and I move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1007. Council Lady Van Rees, Vercher, and others. Approves a lease agreement between Metro and the Electric Power Board to construct a community solar array at 801 Old Due West Avenue. Council Lady Van Rees.
Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommended approval, 7 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention. And I would ask to be abstaining from this vote.
Councilor Van Rees.
Thank you. With that, I move approval of Music City Solar.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councilman Elrod would like to be recorded as abstaining. BL 2017-1008. Councilman Freeman, Vercher, and others. Authorize the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for purposes of the Hartford Drive sidewalk improvements. Councilman Freeman.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 14-4, 0 against.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Freeman.
Move for approval.
It's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1009. Council Lady Murphy, Vercher, and others authorize the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for purposes of the 37th Avenue North sidewalk improvements. Council Lady Murphy.
Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 14-4, 0 against.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Council Lady Murphy. Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Councilor Murphy.
I excitedly move for approval.
Motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1010. Council Lady Karen Johnson, Vercher, and others authorizes the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the Edge Lake Drive sidewalk improvements. Council Lady Karen Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for approval.
Let's get our committee reports.
Committee
Council Lady
reports. I
Vercher.
apologize.
It's all right. Council Lady Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Budget and Finance recommended approval, 14-4, 0 against.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for approval with all committee reports in.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1011. Councilman Pridemore, Mina Johnson, and Elrod accepts permanent and temporary easements for the Neely's Bend Road Stormwater Improvement Project for 11 properties located along Brent Meadow Circle, Chesterfield Circle, Neely's Bend Circle, and Neely's Bend Road. Councilman Pridemore.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Pridemore.
Move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1012, Councilman Elrod accepts permanent and temporary easements for the Simpkins Road Stormwater Improvement Project for 4 properties located at 5301, 5302, 5309, and 5340 Simpkins Road. Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against, and I so move.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BO 2017-1013, Councilman Kendall and Councilman Elrod accepts permanent and temporary easements for the Knoll Street Stormwater Improvement Project for 2 properties located at 1802 Knoll Street and 1411 DB Todd Jr. Boulevard. Councilman Ed Kendall.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommend approval, 8 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Kendall.
Move approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1014, Councilman Elrod accepts permanent and temporary easements for the Woodbury Drive Stormwater Improvement Project for 6 properties located at 316, 318, and 322 Woodbury Drive, 2300 and 2301 Cloverdale Road, and Whipple Place unnumbered. Councilman Elrod.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Elrod.
Public Works recommended approval, 8 in favor, 0 against, and I move approval.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to bills on third reading. Bill 2016-219. Council Lady Karen Johnson and others cancels 7.84 acres of the Forest View Planned Unit Development and changes R10 to RS10 zoning for property located at Forest View Drive unnumbered east of Murfreesboro Pike. Council Lady Karen Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. This is deferred by rule.
Deferred by rule. BL 2017-850, Councilman Sledge. Changes 1.73 acres from R6A to SP zoning for properties located at 530, 534, and 536 Southgate Avenue to permit up to 49 multifamily units. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. As a substitute, I need to move the substitute.
Let's get a committee reports first. Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We believe this approved not yesterday, but previous meeting. It is already approved.
All right, thank you. You guys were ahead of me. I'm sorry, Councilman. There's a motion to substitute. It's properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You're on your bill as substitute.
I will move the bill as substitute.
There's a motion to approve the bill as substituted. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2017-929, Councilman Leonardo. Changes 5.5 acres from AR2A to SP zoning for property located at 1010 Camilla Caldwell Lane to permit up to 40 multifamily residential units. Councilman Leonardo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd ask for committee reports, please.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, zoning, historical approved as substituted, 11-4-0 against.
Councilman Leonardo.
I also have a substitute I'd like to move for approval.
There's a motion to substitute. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You're on your bill as substituted.
Now I would like to move approval on the bill as substituted, please.
It's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-931, Council Lady Weiner. Changes 2.87 acres from R15 to SP zoning for property located at 7341 Charlotte Pike to permit up to 27 multifamily units. Council Lady Weiner.
Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Johnson. Mina.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, zoning, historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Council Lady Weiner.
I'd like to move approval.
Motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-945, Councilman Hastings. Changes 0.17 acres from RS5 to R6 zoning for property located at 130 Fern Avenue. Councilman Hastings.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, zoning, historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Hastings.
Yes, sir. We'd like to move for approval.
It's motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-946, Councilman Hastings. Changes 1.02 acres from R8 to RM20A. Zoning for property located at West Trinity Lane, unnumbered west of Old Buena Vista Road. Councilman Hastings.
Thank you again, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, zoning, historical recommended for approval, 11-4, 0 against.
Councilman.
I'd like to move for approval.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-952, Mendez Virtue and others, amends the Metro Code to establish additional public contracting and procurement restrictions on non-employees. Councilman Mendez.
Move approval, please.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Was there a no? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-961, Councilman Sledge. Changes 0.7 acres from R6 to SB zoning for properties located at 504 and 506 Southgate Avenue to permit up to 9 multifamily residential units. Councilman Sledge.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, zoning, historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Sledge.
Move for approval.
It's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-962, Councilman Roten amends 1.91 acres of a planned unit development for property located at 5055 Old Hickory Boulevard and at 5045 Old Hickory Boulevard to permit a restaurant and add an access point. Councilman Roten.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee report, please.
Councilor Muni Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval as substituted. 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Roten.
Thank you, and I move to substitute.
There's a motion to substitute. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed?
And if I could explain.
Motion carries. You're now on your bill as substituted.
Thank you. If I could explain this. This is a bill that went to planning with a sidewalk in the plan. After the second reading and approval with the sidewalk, the developer went to the Board of Zoning Appeals and got a variance for a payment in lieu of. Now, what that's done, though, is that's brought the bill here to us with a variance approved, but it is still here with the sidewalk in it. And so we have substituted the in lieu of, but that makes it a disapproved bill, so we have to have 27 votes to get it approved. So I would appreciate your vote on this. Thank you.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. Madam Clerk, if you'll open the machine. Were you seeking recognition, Councilman O'Connell?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you. I would just ask the sponsor for a little more explanation of that on what the in lieu of is. This is just a large-scale development where the sidewalks are not.
If you'll address the chair.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Sure. This is, if anyone's familiar with the Hermitage area, it's on Old Hickory Boulevard. It's where the Lowe's and Applebee's and a Chili's is. The Applebee's was shut down about a year ago, and it's been sitting there for about a year. We have a developer that's come in and is going to knock it down and put in 2 new restaurants there, and they're doing a sidewalk on one side and improving it where there is one. Old Hickory Boulevard, if anyone is familiar with that area, it does not have sidewalks at all on Old Hickory Boulevard for miles up and down through there. So you would basically have 200 feet of sidewalk and nothing else on that street. Not only that, there's an incline there, probably 70-degree incline right there. It just doesn't make sense to put a sidewalk there. It makes a lot more sense just to do it in lieu of payment. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, for allowing some discussion there.
Anything, nothing further being brought up? No one else seeking recognition? If everybody will vote. Councilman O'Connell. Madam Clerk, if you'll close the machine, tally the vote.
34 in favor. None against.
Motion carries. BL 2017-963, Councilman Hastings, changes 9.7 acres from IWD to MUG zoning for property located at Athens Way unnumbered at the corner of Athens Way and Great Circle Road. Councilman Hastings.
Thank you, Mr. President. Committee reports, please.
Councilor Muni Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval. 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman
Like to move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-964, Councilman Hastings, changes 4.86 acres from IWD to MUG zoning for property located at 300 Great Circle Road. Councilman Hastings.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Would like to move committee reports.
Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval. 11 for, 0 against.
Councilman Hastings.
Would like to move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-965, Councilman Kendall, changes 1.58 acres from OR 20 and R6 to SP zoning for property located at 301, 303, and 305 Clay Street, 401 and 405 Dominican Drive, 1918, 1920, 1922, and 1924 4th Avenue North to permit a hotel. Councilman Kendall.
Committee reports, please.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval. 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Kendall.
Move approval with just a brief comment.
Floor is yours.
This is another fine hotel that's going to go in my district. There along Rosa Parks, and I did not get one person to object to it. Thank you. I move approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. You may have jinxed yourself, though. I'm just saying. BL 2017-966, Councilman Scott Davis. It changes 4.5 acres from RS5 to R6 zoning for various properties west of Rosedale Avenue. Councilman Scott Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against.
Councilman Davis.
Move for approval, please.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-967, Council Lady Mina Johnson, changes 1.87 acres from AR2A to CL zoning for property located at 6804 Noblesville Pike. Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee report will be me. We voted for approval, 11 for, 0 against. I move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-968, Councilman Potts. Changes 0.44 acres from R6 to SP zoning for property located at 4717 Humber Drive to permit up to 7 multifamily residential units. Councilman Potts.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for one meeting deferral, please.
Let's get our committee report just so
committee reports.
That way we won't have to go back. Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Move for one meeting deferral.
This motion to defer, properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-969, Council Lady Roberts. Changes 0.25 acres from R8 to SP zoning for properties located at 6006 O'Brien Avenue to permit up to 4 multifamily residential units. Council Lady Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical are recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against.
Council Lady Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. Is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-970, Councilman Withers. Changes 0.14 acres from R6 to SP zoning for property located at 2044, 2046, and 2046B Straightway Avenue to permit 2 family residential units. Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Could I get committee reports, please?
Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Withers.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move approval with a brief comment.
Floor is yours.
I just want to thank the planning staff for working with me and the applicant. This lot had some unusual circumstances. I rarely bring rezonings of single lots to this body. This one had some unusual circumstances, and I appreciate the planning staff working with myself and the applicant to come up with a mutually agreeable solution. So with that, I renew my motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-971, Council Lady Mina Johnson. Changes 22.03 acres from AR2A to SP zoning for property located at 6424 and 6434 Pettus Road and 6444 Pettus Road and Noblesville Pike unnumbered, northeast of Noblesville Pike to permit a maximum of 40 single-family residential units and 130 multifamily residential units. Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Call for committee report. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against. I move to approve.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-972, Councilman Kendall. Changes 0.14 acres from RS5 to R6A zoning for property located at 750 22nd Avenue North. Councilman Kendall.
Committee report.
Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman Kendall.
Move approval. Thank you, Mr.
Motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-973, Councilman Kendall. Changes 0.14 acres from RS5 to R6A zoning for property located at 746 22nd Avenue North. Councilman Kendall.
Committee report.
Council Lady Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 for, 0 against.
Move approval.
There's a motion to
Thank
approve.
you, Mr. Glover.
It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-976, Councilman O'Connell. Changes 1.19 acres from CF and ORIA to SP zoning for properties located at 808 and 812 19th Avenue South, and 1815 Division Street to permit a maximum of 420 multifamily residential units and a maximum of 24,000 square feet of non-residential units. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to move approval of the brief comment. Actually, I guess I need committee report here.
Councilor Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Planning, Zoning, Historical recommended for approval, 11 in favor, 0 against.
Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Sorry about that. I would like to move approval of the brief comment.
Floor is yours.
This one, you all noted we had a few folks here to speak in opposition last time. We were able to connect them to the developer, and I have contacted the property manager at the site where most of the residents who asked questions and the few folks who came out at public hearing were, and I think there's, based on the concerns that were expressed and some of the efforts the developers put into this, I feel comfortable moving this one ahead, so I would like to renew my motion to approve. Thanks.
This motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-980, Council Lady Mina Johnson, amends the Metro Code regarding multifamily units associated with artisan manufacturing. Council Lady Mina Johnson.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I request for committee report and received by me and Planning Zoning Committee approved for, recommended for approval, 11-4, against. So I move for approval.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-985, Councilman Leonardo authorizes the transfer of property located at 1010 Camilla Caldwell Lane to Metro Government, from Metro Government to the Metropolitan Development and Housing Agency for the purposes of constructing workforce housing. Councilman Leonardo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. With all committee reports being in, this time I'd move approval.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-986, Council Lady Karen Johnson readopts the code to include supplemental and replacement pages and certain ordinances of a general and permanent nature enacted on or before August 16th, 2017. Council Lady Karen Johnson.
Committee report.
We're on third reading.
Okay, I'm sorry. Third reading. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
With our committee reports in, I move for approval.
Yes, ma'am. There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-987, Councilman Roten and Councilman Sledge approves an agreement between the Department of Parks and Recreation and Memphis Basketball LLC to allow parks to participate in a youth basketball program. Councilman Roten.
Move approval.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-988, Councilman O'Connell and Elrod authorizes 12th Avenue Partners, LLC to install, construct, and maintain underground and aerial encroachments in the right-of-way located at 306 12th Avenue South. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. We've got all our committee approvals. I would like to move to approve.
Motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-989, Councilman O'Connell and Elrod authorizes 7th and Taylor Homeowners Association to install, construct, and maintain underground encroachments in the right-of-way located at 701B Taylor Street. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Again, with all committee reports in, I would like to move approval.
This motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. If barely. BL 2017-990. Roten, Vircher, and others authorizes the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for purposes of the Dotson Chapel Road sidewalk improvements. Councilman Roten.
Move approval.
This motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-991, Councilman Hastings, Vircher, and others authorizes the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the Cecilia Avenue sidewalk improvements projects. Councilman Hastings.
Thank you, Mr. President. With all committee reports in for approval, I would like to move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-992, Council Lady Roberts, Vircher, and others authorizes the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the Burgess Avenue sidewalk improvements. Council Lady Roberts. I'm sorry, there you go.
With committee reports,
This motion to approve is properly seconded. I'm sorry. Oh, she broke her mic. There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-993, Council Lady Virtue and others, authorize the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the Harding Place Sidewalk Improvements Project. Council Lady Virtue.
With all committee reports in, I move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-994, Councilman Scott Davis, Virtue, and others. Authorized the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the Delmas Avenue sidewalk improvements. Councilman Scott Davis. Councilman Scott Davis.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Committee reports, please.
They're all in.
I'd like to move for approval. Merry
There's
Christmas.
a motion to approve. Properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-995, Councilman O'Connell. Authorized the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the Herman Street sidewalk improvements. Councilman O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Have all committee approvals. I would like to move approval with brief comment.
Floor is yours.
We've had a lot of discussion in Public Works Committee on this series of bills coming through, and we've been talking about ways to streamline it because, as we know, communities all throughout Nashville are excited to have new sidewalks coming into their neighborhoods. My neighbors in Hope Gardens are no exception to that, so very glad to see this one and so many others moving along. I think we had a count of 56 different sidewalk projects finally now moving through the pipeline and looking at ways to speed those up even further. In the committee and with the Public Works Department. And I will just finally note that as we were coming in to sit down tonight, we learned that Mark Sturdivant has been named permanent director, no longer interim director for the Public Works. So I'd just like to take a moment of privilege here on this bill as we're working on something important for the city of Nashville to congratulate him. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. I'd like to renew my motion to approve.
Motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-996, Councilman Hager, Virtue, and others authorized the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the 9th, 11th Bryan Livingston Merritt sidewalk improvements. Councilman Hager.
With all committee reports in and approved, I move for approval, please.
Is motion approved? It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-997, Councilman Swope, Virtue, and others authorized the acquisition of certain right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the Cloverland Drive sidewalk improvements. Councilman Swope.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. With all committee reports in, I move approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-998, Council Lady Virtue, Syracuse, and others authorizes the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the JB Estelle Drive sidewalk improvements. Council Lady Virtue.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. With all committee reports in, I move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-999, Elrod Virtue and Mina Johnson authorizes the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the Wofford Drive sidewalk improvements. Councilman Elrod.
As a sidewalk that was announced 2 years ago, I'm glad Public Works and others are getting around to this. Move approval.
This motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1000, Councilman Leonardo Virtue and others authorizes the acquisition of right-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights for the purposes of the West Hamilton Avenue sidewalk improvements. Councilman Leonardo.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. With all committee reports being in, I would move for approval.
There's a motion to approve. It's properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. BL 2017-1001, Council Lady Van Reese, Mina Johnson, and others changes the name of a portion of Sharon Road to Creative Way. Council Lady Van Reese.
All committee reports, I enthusiastically request approval.
This motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Bill 2017-1001, Councilor Van Reese and others, changes the name of Frontage Road to Inspiration Boulevard. Councilor Van Reese.
With all committee reports in, I request approval to this as well. Thank you.
This motion to approve is properly seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Before we adjourn, I do want to, for those of you who remember, my wife Jody and I are opening our house tomorrow night from 6 until whenever for y'all to drop by. Now, we may go to sleep, but you can stay. So if you have a minute to drop by, don't just send me a text if it's going to be too late, okay? Councilor Vercher.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I just want to take this privilege to say happy holidays to you and your families. And on behalf of myself and Vice Chair Schulman, all of you have received some additional funding for your districts. So make sure you spend it wisely. But in all seriousness, though, make sure you have on your calendar finance what they were up there. It's okay, Zach. But in all seriousness, make sure you have on your calendar for this Thursday at 4 o'clock. We will have our capital improvement budgets meeting. And thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Vice. Also, just want to remind people that if you can stop by the Affordable Housing Growth and Change meeting that the Tennessean is having at the library, which they rescheduled at my request so that council members could come. I would appreciate having some of us show up there on our way to the Vice Mayor's gathering. Thank you so much.
We're not far away. We're down.
Yeah, it's close.
In Councilman O'Connell's district, unfortunately. Councilor Karen Johnson.
Thank you,
He's not
Vice Mayor.
so.
I want to ask everyone just for a moment of silence in remembrance of Catan Ward, who is the Tennessean reporter who affected all of us in a major way. He will be missed. I just want to extend condolences to his family, but I just wanted us to take a moment of silence to remember Catan because he made such an impact on this city and on all of us individually in our districts. Thank you.
Is there a motion to adjourn? All in favor? You are adjourned.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.org.